110-million-year-old mummy dinosaur discovered. Dinosaur fossils are highly sought after by researchers around the world, and the better condition that they are found in, the more information they will yield. So when a random worker stumbled across a fully intact mummified dinosaur, scientists over at the Royal Tyrrell Museum couldn't wait to get their hands on it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 110-million-year-old dinosaur mummy that was discovered and perfectly preserved. And hey, if you enjoyed today's video, please sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and slam that notification bell so that you don't miss any of our amazing uploads. Back in 2011, an amazing discovery was made entirely on accident by a heavy equipment operator who was working for Suncor, an energy company. Sean Funk was in the process of drilling down into an oil sands mine located around northern Alberta, Canada. And what started out as a normal day took a very interesting turn when his drill began to hit something that was immeasurably harder than the rock that was surrounding it. He paused before continuing the drilling process, but after drilling for another moment, he ended up coming across a few brown objects that he wasn't familiar with. Funk had never seen anything like it before in all his years of drilling. Funk was very curious about what he had found and thought it might have been something valuable, which caused him to contact his supervisor, who he was able to convince to reach out to the museum. The Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller received the foreign objects. At first, the museum was stumped. They were very curious as to what they found. Researchers were nearly certain that it was a fossil of some sort, but they had no way of knowing what type of fossil until they were able to remove it from the brown sediment that it had been encased in. The process of actually unearthing the fossil took 6 years and a total of about 7,000 hours of work, but scientists believed that the process was worth it. The discovery that was made inside the brown rocks was something that the world had never seen before. While many museums across the world have handled fossils consisting of various dinosaur bones, they'd never come across an entire dinosaur, at least not until that moment. Not only was it a complete dinosaur, rather than just portions or limbs of it, but it was so much more. Instead of being just bone, like the majority of fossils, this specimen was so well preserved that it had even been referred to as a mummy instead of a fossil. A fully intact nodosaur was discovered and currently sits on display at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, where you can see it with all of its armor still intact. So, what was a nodosaur? The nodosaur, or Nodosauridae, is a dinosaur belonging to the Ankylosauриan dinosaur family. They were a species of large herbivorous dinosaurs that roamed the Earth during the late Jurassic period and throughout the late Cretaceous period. They're believed to have stayed around the northern hemisphere of the Earth, in what would be now known as Asia, North America, and Europe. The nodosaur was a heavily armored dinosaur that had multiple rows of bony spines surrounding the sides of its body. However, unlike other ankylosaurian dinosaurs, the nodosaur didn't have a mace-like tail to club any predator that might try to eat them. Instead, their defense is in the horns that surround their bodies, in particular the ones that protrude from the front shoulders. You see, the nodosaur was equipped with large spines that could reach 20 inches or more that would stick out of each of their front shoulder blades to ward off anything that might want to make a meal out of them. They were quadrupedal dinosaurs, meaning that they stayed on all fours when they walked. As of right now, it's argued as to what color the nodosaur might be. Some who studied the mummy that was discovered have come to believe that the nodosaur was comprised of 2 separate colors. One is a dark red or brown color on the top of its back with a lighter color on its underbelly. And if that's the case, it's likely that the dual color palette was developed as a form of camouflage in order to protect itself even further from predators. However, not every expert can agree with the concept and believe that there is more to consider with the mummy when it comes to the color of the nodosaur. One of the first questions that researchers began to ask themselves was, why is this nodosaur so well preserved? Which led them to interpret how the dinosaur may have died and where it ended up, which would have caused the body to mummify instead of simply decaying. Considering the condition of the dinosaur's body and the fact that it was in one solid piece, it was determined that it wasn't eaten or attacked by anything that caused it to die. However, once it died, it would have eventually been swept away by water. The water would have taken the body out in what was at one point an ancient sea before it got stuck on the bottom of the sea floor on its back. While stuck on the sea floor, it would be undisturbed for millions of years, and during this time it would collect and be encased in large amounts of mud, sand, and sediments. This natural tomb kept the body of the nodosaur from succumbing to decay or being food for scavengers, and over time, that ancient sea would dry up as lands, which would shift around the Earth. Then, 110 million years after the death of the nodosaur, it was miraculously discovered with all of its skin and armor plating still intact for researchers to study. The most impressive part of this discovery, however, is the fact that the stomach contents of the nodosaur managed to be preserved as well. The discovery of a fully intact mummified dinosaur has opened up a world of information for scientists and researchers. Not only does it give insight as to what these massive animals actually looked like, but it also allows us to find out what a giant herbivore such as a nodosaur would eat. To find the well-preserved contents of a dinosaur's stomach is something that is so rare that it had never been discovered before, and it ended up giving scientists amazing insight into what this particular species of dinosaurs ate on a daily basis. What really shocked the researchers was the fact that the details of the food that were discovered in the nodosaur's stomach were so well preserved that they looked as if they'd come from plants that were used for modern samples in today's world. And remember, we're talking about plants from more than 100 million years ago. Now, when the scientists got to look at the type of plants that the nodosaur had consumed, they were surprised to discover that it was somewhat of a picky eater. In total, they found 26 ferns and club mosses inside the stomach, along with 2 flowering plants and 48 different microfossils of what is believed to be moss or liverwort. They also discovered bits of charcoal in the nodosaur's stomach, which isn't too surprising when you consider the area that the dinosaur was likely eating in was one that is believed to have been prone to wildfires during the Cretaceous period. It's because of these fires that ferns would grow and flourish in the newly opened area. When compared to fossil leaf studies from the same region and period of time that the nodosaur was from, it was determined that the dinosaurs were particularly interested in only the soft leaves on less common ferns. It didn't seem to eat any of the more common plants or leaves in the area at the time. But what's really cool is that the nodosaur apparently liked to graze out in the open instead of being under the cover of thick trees. The fact that the plant matter wasn't entirely digested also gives researchers the idea to consider the fact that the nodosaur likely died shortly after its last meal. And who's to say what else they will be able to discover? The researchers working on the project will be studying the nodosaur for years to come so that they might discover everything they can about this massive species of herbivores that thrived over 100 million years ago. The discovery of the 110-million-year-old nodosaur mummy was a complete accident, but there is no doubt that researchers who have gotten to study the mummy were pleased with it. What sort of information are you hoping they can discover from this well-preserved fossil? Be sure to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our uploads.